Hey everybody, it's Glenn, back in this video with the Marvel Legends Target exclusive triple pack, which has been knocking around for a while now, I know. But I finally bit the bullet ordering from a seller in the US, as thankfully heavy discounting on the set by Target made the scalper price I paid on the secondary market more competitive and affordable for me. Before we take a closer look at the figures themselves to see if the cash I splashed was worth it, let's first look at the packaging back, where each character gets a bit of blurb. First up, Miss Marvel. When her human DNA fused with that of the mighty Kree warrior Mar-Vell, Carol Danvers became the superhuman Miss Marvel. And if you're wondering how the X-Men's Rogue could fly and was superhumanly strong, well, those are powers she stole from Miss Marvel. Then Captain America's science made Steve Rogers a super soldier with extraordinary speed, agility, strength, and durability, but it's his heart that makes him Captain America. Aw, doesn't that just warm your cockles? And finally, Radioactive Man, who is China's contribution to the Marvel Universe, along with every Marvel action figure ever made, but I mean in the sense of an actual Chinese character and not just a toy made there. A nuclear physicist with his eye on taking over the world, Dr. Chen Lu transformed himself into the walking atomic meltdown known as Radioactive Man. Here they are all out of packaging. This Miss Marvel marks her second appearance in Marvel Legends, and since the release of this set, she's already had a third with Captain Marvel in the All-Father wave. It's almost like a movie starring her is being planned and Marvel are trying in the meantime to raise her profile or something. Then sandwiched in the middle is Captain America. Not sure we need another one, but they have to stuff at least one character that your grandma might walk the aisles of Target and recognize. And Radioactive Man, whose inclusion is part of Hasbro's commitment to squeeze out the lost children, those Marvel Legends that Hasbro have showcased only not to be released. Finally, here he is, so let's start with him. A body reusing the Hyperion figure. It's a superhumanly beefy one, also used with Sabretooth, Toxin, all new X-Men Beast, and Anti-Venom, to name some among my collection. It even seems he and Hyperion even shop at the same shoe store. Minimal paint deco on this one, with the deco restricted to the whites of his eyes, further accentuated by some shading around them. Then the detail of the tank top and the symbol are just painted on, but for the most part it's crisply done. I do hear the symbol on his chest is glow in the dark. I'll flip off the lights, but no, my camera's not picking that up. And yes, he wears a skirt. It's 2015, people, let's not judge. I guess his translucence is the most exciting aspect, and here that's being helped out by the trio of spotlights I'm lighting him with, as the more light he is subject of, the more he appears to glow with radiation. Ultimately, it's good of Hasbro to come through with him, but honestly, I think more would have preferred Bulldozer in his place as completion of the Wrecking Crew. But hold on to your hats, that's coming in Ant-Man Legends. So he's chunky like a monkey, but let's look at articulation to see if he's nimble like a thimble. His head rotates side to side, it looks down a decent amount, and it's also able to look up a decent amount. There's rotation at the shoulder, his arm moves up well to a right angle to his body, there's upper arm rotation, and then there's a double jointed elbow, there's rotation at the wrist, and then the wrist is also hinged, moving down and up. He has an ab crunch which moves this far forward and then this far back. There's rotation at the waist, and then at the hips his legs move out to the side. Seems they are a bit inhibited by his skirt, as they are also moving forward, and well, they don't move too much back. There's upper leg rotation, there's a double jointed knee, and then at the top of the boot it rotates, and then at the ankle it's hinged, moving backwards and forwards, and it has that ankle rocker pivot I love. Now, I've read a lot of comics in my time, and although Radioactive Man has been around since the early 60s, I'm certain I've never actually read a comic with him in. But nonetheless, the evil streak in me makes me partial for the bad guys, so I'll need to somehow squeeze him into my already overflowing bad guy shelf, or buy a new bookcase. Moving on to Miss Marvel, or Carol to her friends, who clearly I'm among. Carol's first figure came in the form of the Giant Man series way back in, I think, 2005. Wow, a decade ago. She was sold as Warbird, which was her superhero alias of choice back then. It's actually one of Toy Biz's better lady legends, but that's a real low bar, so real easy to step over. Which makes Hasbro's effort welcome, especially as it's on the well-received body first used for the SDC Thunderbolts box box set exclusive Moonstone. The body is well proportioned, balancing the functionality of articulation with a statuesque comic curvy chick's anatomy, without one compromising the other. Perfect she ain't though. My biggest problem with her is on her upper legs. If you look at the hips, those are molded from a flesh colored plastic, whereas her legs below the point of rotation there are molded from the dark plastic of her costume. Then the upper legs have been painted to match the color of the plastic of her hips, and not matched or painted well. It is a different shade with poor coverage that leaves the dark plastic underneath peering through in patches. It's a sloppiness that detracts from an otherwise solid effort, leaving her not able to take the crown from Black Cat, who remains my favourite of Hasbro's recent Lady Legends. But with Black Cat, well, she's the kind of gal your mother warned you about, whereas Miss Marvel is more the kind you'd take home to meet your parents. I guess the cat collar, low-cut top, bulging cleavage and high heels make that distinction, and unlike Radioactive Man and Hyperion, Miss Marvel and Black Cat don't shop at the same shoe store, thankfully, as the heels create a real balancing headache for Black Cat, rendering Felicia Hardy just plain hardy to stand up. In fact, here I only have Black Cat standing by virtue of Jean Grey's telekinesis. Let's now look at articulation and put our comparison caps on as we bring back Toy Biz's effort. The heads of both rotate as much as their hair allows. Hasbro's isn't able to really look down or up at all, whereas Toy Biz's is. The arms of each rotate at the shoulder, then Toy Biz's moves up plenty, whereas Hasbro's only really moves up to a right angle to her body. Then Toy Biz's also has a butterfly armpit joint. Both have upper arm rotation, then on Toy Biz's about a centimetre below that rotation of the upper arm around the shoulder ball joint, it rotates again. And this is where Toy Biz, God bless them, starts to feel a bit like articulation for articulation's sake. Toy Biz's has a double jointed elbow, whereas Hasbro's has a rotating elbow and essentially a single hinge, and the difference that makes can clearly be seen here. And now I feel guilty for accusing Toy Biz of articulation for articulation's sake, because clearly this is articulation for posing's sake, with their effort able to touch her own nose, whereas Hasbro's is only able to pump the air with her own fist. Hasbro's rotates at the wrist, whereas Toy Biz's rotates mid-lower arm. Both have wrist hinges moving back and forwards. Then whereas the hands of Hasbro's are sculpted into a fist, Toy Biz's also has hinged fingers. Hasbro's has a diaphragm joint, whereas Toy Biz's has an ab crunch, with these being the furthest forward those joints move, and this being the furthest back. Toy Biz winning in both regards there. Hasbro has no waist articulation, instead rotates at the diaphragm joint, while Toy Biz has traditional waist rotation. At the hips, the legs of each move out to the side. Toy Biz is a little more so, but the legs of each move forward about the same amount, and the legs of both don't really move back all that much. Both have upper leg rotation, but then like her arms, Toy Biz's needlessly doubles up on the leg rotation. Both have double jointed knees. Toy Biz's has lower leg rotation, whereas Hasbro's does not. Both have ankle hinges moving back and forwards, and both have an ankle pivot, and Toy Biz loved a toe hinge, and we get that here. So yes, technically Toy Biz does win on articulation, but in the trade-off of an easier on the eye sculpt and articulation, I'd take an easier on the eye sculpt but less articulated figure over a more articulated one but uglier looking one any day. Moving on to Cap. Now correct me if I'm wrong, this was a body first used for the Nick Fury and Dum Dum Dugan that both came in a 2-pack with a hand ninja. It's since been used for Drax, I believe, in the Arnim Zola series, Walgreens Agent Venom, and most recently Magneto. Who'd have thunk it? It's even appeared single carded in the Hit Monkey way with an Ultimate Comics deco, which I don't own, but looking at pics means grey legs change for a blue deco, minus a leg holster and his harness in lieu of a vest. So if you have the earlier one, not sure this one is distinct enough to justify adding it to your collection. The proportions are slightly bigger than the much plundered Bucky Cap body, represented here on the left in the form of US Agent. Honestly, I don't know Cap's wardrobe well enough to really assign this costume to an era or moment in the comics. The belt has a flask, a knife, and more pouches than one of Rob Liefeld's wet dreams, so screams 90s to me. But then in the mask I definitely see a movie influence going on, and the facial expression is similarly as stern as Miss Marvel's. Imagine being sandwiched between these two at a party. What a barrel of laughs there'd be. He does come with an interchangeable unmasked head, which is a nice bonus. Cap shield attaches through the harness into his back, then can also be clipped to his wrist. I like that with the interior of the shield it has a sculpted detail of some rivets and whatnot. It's an attention to detail they could have easily skipped, yet haven't. The shield bears the classic red, white and, red, silver and blue of the American flag. Now looking at articulation, his head of course rotates side to side. He's able to look down a real decent amount and also looks up a decent amount. At the shoulder his arm rotates, his arm moves up this much, and you will notice as I move back down it does disrupt the star deco on his shoulder. There's upper arm rotation, a double jointed elbow, and then there's rotation at the top of the glove and no wrist hinge. What? Has an ab crunch which moves this far forward and then this far back. There's rotation at the waist, and then at the hips the legs move out to the side. Well, this one moves out as much as this big ugly pouch allows. And to move the leg forward takes a bit of finagling of the hip ball joint, and it doesn't really move too far back. There's upper leg rotation, a double jointed knee, then there's rotation at the top of the boot. The feet are hinged, moving backwards and forwards, and they have that awesome ankle rocker pivot. So I think if these sets are still sat on shelves discounted at your local Target, then you could do worse than picking up the set. And if you're on my side of the pond, now might be the time to get the set shipped across to you, as once they've cleared out of Target stateside, the price will likely bump back up. Anyway, click the video on the right as I put the Legends Hellcat to good use in the form of my Jean Grey custom. Subscribe for more, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.